Okay, I'm recording from my end.
Okay, perfect.
I'm gonna go on mute now.
Okay, I'm just gonna grab the invitation link really quick. One second. Start the video. Okay, does that look all good? Just black?
Yeah, just black, full screen.
Sweet. Mute myself, sorry.
Welcome, FemHouse fam. This is Hermixalot, co-founder and executive director of FemHouse. I am here for this week's special edition of Backstage Pass with none other than Verite. I'm so excited. I've already learned a ton just getting ready for this. So I know that you're going to take a lot away from it. If you want to learn more about Verite, you can hit her on all the socials. We will be posting this on YouTube, etc., live, and we'll have all the info up there. Verite is a remarkably talented independent artist who's always been an example of how to create and build outside of normal paradigms. Her entrance into Web3 was inevitable, and her successful experiments have been described as both innovative and disruptive, with 350 million streams, which is insane. She continues to push what's possible as an independent artist while bridging the gap between tech artists and you, the fans. Verite has successfully released and sold NFTs with Zora, Catalog, Async, Sound, XYZ, and Royal. And she was the first artist to ever sell master ownership of a song in perpetuity via NFT in April 2021. Welcome, Verite.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure. So I just gave a little intro of you, but tell us in your own words, what's your origin story? What's your superhero moment that got you here to this moment?
Man, I mean, I feel like it's just been a process of a million tiny moments and like one foot in front of the other that has kind of built, I mean, really my life and career to where it's been. I've been performing and since I was a kid and in high school, always in bands and always hyper ambitious in terms of wanting to be a professional musician, but had zero context for what that actually could potentially look like.
Mhm.
I think I was fed the American Idol dream of one day on the subway, someone's going to discover me and I'm going to sign a deal and my life is going to change. And I think really quickly, once I entered the music industry proper, I realized that that is not a realistic trajectory. And also very quickly, I recognized that I had the ability to build a career independently. And from there, it's really just been a journey of trying to keep what's most important to me forefront, which is freedom to create and the autonomy to build what I want to build without really relying on middlemen and without relying on these traditional structures, and how can I build something that's my own. And so really the last 7 years of Verite, like this project, has been an exploration in how I can do that. And kind of my pivot into Web3 was recognizing that the structures that I've done that with in the last few years are no longer really viable options forward. You know, streaming, DSPs, social media, they're all great tools, but I was recognizing that I was seeing certain roadblocks. And so instead of waiting for them to be problems, I was like, might as well solve now.
Good shit. There's a couple of really meaty things that I think you touched on there. The first one is that, like you said, you knew you wanted to be a professional independent artist, but you had no context for what that means. I mean, looking at that sort of nuance all these years later, when you've quite literally reimagined what an independent artist can be, I feel like if you had started with a context, and if you'd started with this box that everyone obviously still tried to force you in, but if you'd started believing that as the truth, then I don't know that we're sitting here having this conversation about how you're disrupting and like flipping the table on all this shit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, back then, I mean, I got it, feel like it ages me. But right, 2014 is when I started this project. And I feel like the turning point was when I actually started investing my own money
Mm-hmm.
into the project. And like I was waiting tables at Applebee's on 42nd Street, right? So it's like
Mm.
essentially I was like hustling tips. I didn't know what I was building like my savings account for. And then one day I was just like, oh, I'm building all of this to just deplete it and invest it. And that was the turning point for me, because I was just like, if I'm investing my own money, I'm going to make this shit successful.
Oh yeah,
There's no other option. Um,
sure.
and so that was this turning point. And the narrative back then was that streaming doesn't pay and it's going to ruin the music industry as we know it. But for me, I had no context for what the music industry was, and I just viewed this as access. I was like, oh, this is a point of entry for me. And so a lot of our focus was on SoundCloud initially, because Hype Machine was really active in kind of building and spotlighting new and emerging artists. And in tandem to the success I had on Hype Machine, all of the music was on streaming, and we started taking meetings with Spotify when they were still in a PR crisis of sorts. And so the idea of like being an early adopter to changes and innovation, especially in technology, is really beneficial, right? Because I got to ride the wave of like the early days of Spotify, building a really sustainable foundation. It definitely helped me garner as many, millions of streams as I have. But it was really clear once I embraced that like no real major label system was going to embrace and accept me for the artist that I was, or really provide me with the tools to have like the flexibility and autonomy that I really want. And so for me, it's like really just, those are the two most important factors to me. But once I got that first streaming royalty check, I was like, oh, why do I need their money? I have more of my own.
Yeah.
And
Were
continue.
you getting label looks at the time? Were labels sniffing at your door?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to sign to a major label in 2015, right? Again, that was the goal. And best thing that ever happened to me, it like fell through day before signing, like dramatic. I had told all my like colleagues I was quitting. It was like a blow to the self-esteem, but it just provided enough time, right? Because we have an extremely antiquated music industry where royalties come on like a 6-month to year delay. So it allowed for enough time for me to get that initial streaming revenue to recognize, oh, there's actually money here. I don't know what anyone's talking about when you own your masters. It's just a different numbers game. You have to hit a different critical mass in order to capitalize on that. But when you maintain full ownership, you're dealing with different numbers than what was the only viable option for distribution, which was major labels, which artists are only ever seeing, I don't know, 15% at most post recoupment, right? So it's just a completely different system, a completely different game.
Do you think there's any winning in that old game? Or do you think, I mean, insofar as I see it, especially as I've been prepping to talk to you and sort of learning more about the space that you're in, I feel like if enough artists sort of invest their time in learning this and ideating ways to create an industry around it that is beneficial to them first, it seems to me that the old system doesn't stand a chance, save for the, like the Adeles of the world and the Taylor Swifts of the world will always thrive in that sort of system. It's in fact been created around them, right? To like perpetuate that sort of system. But it feels to me that this is the future, which is why I wanted to sort of bring it to the community and make everybody aware of the power that creators could possibly have in moving forward with this sort of vibe.
Yeah, I think that system is extremely viable and is not going anywhere. And I think that it caters to a certain subset of what the marketplace wants, what consumers want. And consumers want stars, right? They always have. They want, like the Whitney Houstons, Michael Jacksons, Beyonce's, Adele's, right? Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, like now Doja Cat, like this idea of like, we want to see the larger than life stars. But I think what we've seen with the democratization of creation and distribution of music, that the marketplace is now wholly oversaturated, which I think is inherently good. I have this is like, it's something we can touch on later. Like, I think all music should be free, right? I think that's an inherently good thing. And especially because people aren't willing to pay for the variety of music they want to try, right? But I think what we've seen in the marketplace oversaturation is hyper niche communities thriving, right? Because at the end of the day, there's too much music to fully consume. And what you're seeing is artists that actually never hit the mainstream in the same way that the Adeles, the Lady Gagas actually have extremely viable, hyper successful careers. without ever getting that mainstream adoption. And I think that when we move into Web3, it's like we're essentially taking that to the next level. Whereas maybe for, the largest artist, you need millions and millions of supporters to make that a viable career. Maybe for the hyper niche, you need hundreds of thousands. And now we're looking, okay, maybe I only need 100 high value collectors to give me the same injection of investment and monetization. And if you're forming hyper niche, hyper dedicated communities, where we're reinvigorating the idea of like, what does patronage look like, etc., it's like you can also form a viable career. But similar to how it's really hard to be Doja Cat, and it's really hard to even be a high level hyper niche artist. Like Oliver Tree comes to mind. It's like, if you know Oliver Tree, millions and millions of followers, but like my mom doesn't know who Oliver Tree is.
Sure.
And my mom's hip as fuck.
Yeah.
Right. And then kind of bringing it down, it's like it's going to be extremely hard at every level to build a viable career. And so what Web3 really provides is a set of tools for artists to really build their own concentrated ecosystems.
That's really interesting, especially because you use the word patronage there. And this idea of patronage, for those watching that like aren't familiar with the term, it's an historical term. And before there was a music industry or a media industry, all the great artists of the day were supported by patronage. And then in that there was, say, a very rich benefactor that paid for them to live so that they could write the next great novel, etc. And I think for me, the further we move away from that model, insofar as the mainstream music industry, the more we seem to dilute the art, right? And you said, like, you think that all music should be free. And like, yes, I agree that all music should be free, but it wasn't always thought of as a foregone conclusion, right? Like art used to be a premium good. It used to be a luxury. It used to be a privilege, to the end that like rich people would pay money to support their favorite artists to ensure that they always got to consume. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I came into the prep for this as a complete non-believer of the NFT and Web3 thing, just because I think the face for the average consumer of it is like kind of broy and like douchey and like not at all what you're talking about and what you're thinking of moving it toward. And then this idea of patronage, after reading your Mirror article, I was like, oh, I see. That makes sense. So like when do you become aware of all this? Like at what point in your career, you've been at it as an indie artist for a minute, like at what point did you look at this and say, oh shit, I think there's something here, I want to explore this as an artist?
Well, in 2020, obviously a lot changed for everyone. And I think for me, it really forced me to stop it, like essentially cut my second record cycle short. And I was forced to really look left and right and like, all right, what does the next 5 to 10 years of my career look like? Right. I had a lot of time for deep thoughts. Sure. And as we
a lot of us were making 5-10-year plans at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, it's just like, what do I do with all this extra time? I guess I'll figure out my life.
Well, and I'll be honest, it was bleak, right? Because again, it's like I saw the path that I had been on, that like I had a lot of success. And I was just like, man, like shit's changing and I need to adapt. And at that time, I didn't know where it was changing. I just knew that I didn't want to dance on TikTok. Like that was honestly it. Like, I will not dance on TikTok. And that was kind of the moving narrative of like, okay, cool. If you want success, like you need to be out here, you need to be a content creator. And I'm like, I'm not really interested in being a content creator in that way. And I recognize that I have to adapt to marketplace realities. Where are the people? Where is the attention? And so I really started experimenting. I started a Discord. I started a podcast. And I was just like, okay, I need to diversify revenue streams, right? It's like one of my main revenue streams is now gone. So I'm going to put my hand in all of these different things. And I created like an 8-bit video game world for an EP release for my fans to come hang out with in COVID. I did a driveway tour. So again, I'm like sitting
Cool
trying to,
shit.
I did a bunch of shit. Not all of
Yeah.
it worked. But the podcast kind of led me into this world through an artist called RIC. And him and he's been very involved in this world for a very long time. And his essentially, we got into a conversation about the value of music, because I have always come from the perspective that it's an immense privilege to make music and to make music as a living, right? It's just, and I just come from, like I grew up waiting tables from when I was 14. Like my mom grew up waiting tables. My dad laid floors. Like, you know what I mean? We were all workers.
Yeah.
And all, my family is a family that's transitioned from like workers into these, like both my parents are now college professors and I'm a musician. Like we've kind of like come to this different realm of work. But like, I was just like, man, it's an immense privilege. Like, I don't deserve people's money for creating art about my feelings. And so I got into this debate with this person who said music has immense value. And I was just like, well, maybe. And we kind of came to this conclusion, and he really led me there, where it's like the problem is the fixed valuation, right? That one stream is 0.004 cents, and that the systems by which we collect this revenue, it's like it's not properly weighted. And if you wanted to listen to my music and pay $1 per stream, you actually don't have the ability to do so outside of buying merchandise, outside of touring. So that idea, and yes, you can do that on Bandcamp, but that's not the most popular platform. We need to meet consumers where they are.
Sure.
And so NFTs actually do allow for the creation of digital scarcity, kind of what you were talking about before, about this idea of what patronage used to be. We're going to pay you a lot of money to create this novel so that everyone can read it for a really low price, right? And then if you really can't afford it, we're just going to give you the novel, right? So that you can experience and appreciate art. And so that was my entry point. And then from there, I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm just someone who learns by doing, for better or for worse. I'm happy to get it wrong, and I do all the time. And I just started dropping NFTs, and I dropped an NFT on Zora. And back then, especially in the music space, I mean, but in general, it was like all male, like EDM bros.
Yeah.
That was it. And I think everyone was just excited to see like a regular artist kind of like coming into it. And so I got a lot of support. And then I was lucky enough to be part of the inaugural catalog drop and got a lot of support. And that kind of transitioned me to like the cornerstone of like what you guys had said on the flyer, which was, I recognized that no one cared. Like people cared in like the NFT space, but like my fans, they didn't care. Kind of like you're just like, I wasn't sold.
Yeah.
And so it kind of led me to, okay, you don't have to care. I don't even want you to care, but like, how can I make you care? How can I actually utilize this less as like, yo, we're hyping this shit up, this is the future, and more so, oh, how can I utilize these tools to solve the problems that I'm currently facing as an independent artist, to serve the community that I've been serving, and to add new people, new patrons into the mix, fans and collectors kind of coming together in one ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really, it's something that I hadn't considered until just listening to you now. Like the more that you're empowering yourself to make these choices with your art and really answer questions that you need answered, and sort of like address problems that you need addressed financially or otherwise, you're also giving fans more of a choice, right? You're giving them more of a say in their experience. You're giving them more of a say in how they interact with you, while also not turning yourself into some weird content farm where everyone gets to see you fucking brushing your teeth every morning or whatever.
Funny enough, that's the only thing I do on TikTok now. And that's my whole series is like, I'll just
brush your teeth.
I'll put the music on while I brush my teeth. And that's it. That's all you get.
Are you fucking around with me right now? Are you
No,
being
I
funny?
did it twice, and literally that's my plan. I'm just like, you want me on TikTok? I'll brush my fucking teeth while the song plays, and eventually it'll go viral.
That is hysterical because I truly had no idea. And I'm sure like in the moment as I was saying it, it was reading to you as a very pointed like joke, but I literally had no idea. That's funny as fuck.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So I want to back the truck up a little bit because I just love what you did for your first NFT drop with Zora, and hearing you describe it as like having no idea what the fuck you were doing and just doing it. Like I think it's the coolest. And I just think there's something so earnest about how you went about it, and something just so, it's very dreamy, like this idea of you staying up all night, like maybe having just learned what an NFT is, and tell I'm not going to spoil it, but just like tell everybody what you did with Zora for your first NFT drop.
Yeah, I mean, I called my manager and I was just, and I had told her about all of this, and I was just like, yo, I had just gotten the invite to Zora. You needed an invite. And I was just like, hey, I feel like I need to do this. And she's just like, okay, which is why we love Vanessa, because, you
Shout out
know,
to Vanessa.
yeah, Vanessa makes everything happen. But yeah, I stayed up really all night, and I was like at my parents' house, and my dad is a graphic designer, and he had like the Big Mac because my computer kept crashing, and I just made like a really simple moving graphic for the cover art. It's so fucking simple. For the cover art of the first song that I had released as this project, and I was just like, great, this is the first NFT that I ever released. This is the first song I released. I felt like the sentiment made sense.
Yeah.
And it definitely was like up all night being like, oh, it glitches there, or oh, like the audio is wrong, because it takes like 5 hours to export. So I definitely did it 2 or 3 times.
Sure. How did it go? How was the release received? Or
It was
in
great.
your mind, was it a win?
It was a win. I mean, it was, again, it's like it sold for $1,800, right? And it's like, for me, as I'm sitting putting together what is the value of music and contemplating this, because I definitely view all of this as experimentation. Even now, a year into it, I know nothing, right? It's like I'm just gathering data and then attempting to build better, right? And so the idea of, okay, there's clearly something here if someone's willing to pay $1,800 for a song that they can stream for free right now, that was released in 2014. It's not even my best fucking song, right? And so you start to realize, okay, I don't know what it is, but clearly I'm going to try it again, you know? And the second one was the first single from my first record. Again, I'm trying to go with the firsts, and it sold for $10,000. Right. And
God,
it's like,
I encourage everyone watching to go fucking research how long it takes to make $10,000 on like Spotify, and like how many streams you need for that.
a lot, millions.
Yes,
Or you
millions.
need like 2.5 million. If you own 100% of your masters, about 2.5 million, maybe 3 million is going to get you around 10K.
That is insane.
So a different world and a different
Yeah.
framing for value. And again, and it's funny, I don't really, there's two things. I don't talk about money in terms of bragging, right? And I'm really specific about that. But I think that also we come in the music industry as like women a lot of the times, right? As it's we're acculturated to let the men talk about money, let the industry professionals talk about money,
right?
And somehow like it's an uncomfortable conversation. And I think, you know, as an independent artist, as somebody who runs a business, I think it's really important to have like financial transparency and kind of show people that like financial literacy is extremely important in building something, because you need to know what you're worth, you need to know what you're spending, you need to know what other people are spending. And so I'm here for like healthy financial discussion.
Yeah, that's really important. And you know, the less we talk about money with transparency, the more in the dark people are about their value, right? And that's the entire system depends on that. So I fuck with that philosophy. Give me a rundown of your three pillars, your three NFT pillars. I find them, I feel, to me, like they're quite, it feels like you've built by accident or by great intention. It's hard to tell. A very adaptable to artist systems is if people fuck with this sort of paradigm of thought with regard to these three pillars. I think that they could have a very fruitful NFT career as an artist and leveraging that as an artist. So break it down for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So in all of my experimentation, essentially, I have found the three pillars that I've identified so far. There will probably be more. The first of which being like one of one music NFTs, right? This is not my analogy. It's a very popular one, but like it's the Mona Lisa of music NFTs. It's like one person owns, or one entity, because sometimes it's a business or a DAO or an investment firm, but like one entity owns the Mona Lisa, right? They don't own the IP of the Mona Lisa. They just own the painting, right? They own the real tangible thing. And that's really hard in music unless you create like a one of one vinyl, like Wu-Tang Clan, right? Like the idea that, okay, we're creating digital scarcity by me essentially selling you this one of one original printing of the master recording verified on the blockchain. And inherently, that should be of high value, right? There's only ever going to be one. It's extremely scarce. And I really like one of one NFTs. And I actually think it's one of the most powerful use cases for music NFTs and really is the demonstration of patronage that we were talking about. There are inherent issues with that. It is wholly inaccessible to really most people, because who has 15 grand to throw around at something that isn't even practical in the day-to-day. And so I really love that model, but I recognize that it's not the best, it's not the most well-rounded use of the technology. And so I utilize it, and essentially the fact that it's verified ownership on the blockchain is why I can't just, email you the thing, right? It's like we need some sort of proof of ownership. The second becomes fractionalized ownership, and I view that in two different ways, and I've kind of experimented with two different ways. There is fractionalized ownership of an NFT, so editions. So essentially, like I've made 200 of these. They're all $100, right? Less scarce, less rare, still providing an opportunity for collection, but it's like less of a value proposition in terms of like scarcity and rarity, but maybe it gets you access to a community, right? So there's incentive to want to be a part, incentive to want to like have something that other people do have, which is a completely different consumer psychology in general. And the second half of that is fractionalized ownership of IRL royalties. The idea of, okay, I'm going to sell you an NFT that actually represents real world royalties of this song. And I have to say that that has been the only value proposition that is translated to my fans, which I find really interesting. And I did that with Royal. And I think that it resonated because language matters in all of this. And I think that when you say, I want to own a piece of a song, there's a sentimental proposition there that doesn't exist where I own an NFT of this song, right? It's a completely different proposition. And so for me, I sold 39% of a single, He's Not You. I had, I think, about 15 fans participate. And was able to essentially, I had a town hall. I was just like, if you're not willing to part with $150 and lose it, right? I was just like, you're not going to make money off of these royalties, because as we said, 0.004 cents a stream. You need a lot of millions of streams to have 0.5% of a song be make you money. I'm not thinking,
Yeah.
but it exists. And essentially, I did that, and it was the first time it all clicked. And from there, it's, kind of goes into, well, what do probably non-crypto native fans interested in? And I think they're interested in experiences. Like you said before, it's like we're creating bespoke experiences for fans that ideally the tools of Web3 can solve problems that artists currently have in accessing their fan bases. And fans can also be getting cool shit for supporting their artists early, right? And Justin Blau, this is one of his quotes, but it's and I'm going to butcher it, but the idea that the experience of being a fan gets worse the bigger the artist gets, right?
Facts.
If you sit and you support an artist from day one and you're at a 200 cap venue and you're buying their merch, when they're playing a stadium, you get less access. It is harder for you to get tickets. It is more expensive. There's no mechanism that tracks the value of the fan in the experience of an artist's rise and growth. And I think that experiential NFTs and what I built with a company called IYK really starts to solve that, in terms of, we built this thing called Guest Book for my last tour, where fans could tap their phone, they could leave me a message, which I thought was cool, really sign the guest book, leave their name, leave their email address. And if you had a crypto wallet, put in your crypto wallet address, and we airdropped you an NFT, which proves your attendance at that show. So now the next time I go on tour, I can raffle off free meet and greet upgrades to people who were at the last show, because it's verified that they actually showed up. They actually tapped their phone. You can't farm that. You actually had to be there to get it. So this idea of rewarding people for having experiences, and then continuing to create interactive and bespoke experiences around the creation of art, around, I don't know, just what it is to have a relationship with an artist who you resonate with an artist you love. And so I think that an experiential shit also, it can exist in all tiers. But I think that IRL experience and that IRL sentiment is really important. And the free sentiment. You don't have to pay for this. You just have to show up. You don't have to pay for this. I can reward you for participating so that it is on chain. I have like an on-chain record of your support, and can just reward you for being there. It's easier for me because I can't remember everyone's name.
Big facts.
I'm really just trying to solve my own problems.
To me, I think that's what the space is. If I'm taking a theme from this space, it's just like artists solving their own problems while directly enhancing the experience of the fans, which is a wonderful feedback loop, I think. I'm going to break here. We're going to answer some questions, and I'll remind the audience to drop them in the Q&A here, if you have them. This is from Ren GM. I'm working on an idea right now. Do you see a possible market for your fans, listeners, with interactional avatars in the metaverse? And would you be able to connect this with NFT? Could this be a solution to get your fandom that can't be collectors to the NFT world? Would it be easy access for that market?
First off, love Ren MG, keeping the conversation going. I feel like the answer is yes, but when it comes to me personally, and maybe like I'm more interested in bringing things back into IRL, and maybe it's just because 2 years of COVID and I'm just finally like, oh, I'm leaving my apartment on a regular basis. I think the interactive avatars and the idea of creating a better user experience for digital worlds and digital landscapes, it's inevitable. And we already see it with like Fortnite and Decentraland, etc. But I think what I found is like my fans don't really want to live online. And I get that from talking to them and from having multiple digital installations, at kind of decreasing participation, right? And you can have one digital concert a year, right? But no one's going to want to come to the second, to the third, to the fourth. I think people are going to be more likely to want to, again, have real world experiences, but then have a digital proxy for those IRL experiences.
I'm just going to say that all of these questions are from our beloved Ren.
We love Ren. Now. Oh, we have anonymous attendee too.
And we have anonymous attendee, two anonymous attendee. From Ren, how does taxes work in the NFT world? Is it better than having a contract of loyalties?
I mean, taxes, if you're doing it without lying to the government, kind of work in a similar way. If you have income, you're equating the number that you of USD at the time of the transaction to the government. It gets a bit more complicated, and I will not speak to when you buy, when you sell, that becomes much more complicated. But like if I make an NFT sale, I have to report that to the IRS, whether or not I extract that Ethereum into USD. And I recommend not lying on your taxes because, you know, they're going to come for you.
FemHouse does not endorse lying on your taxes.
Yeah, no. We're here.
Let's make that clear as hell on camera. Big
Yes.
facts, evergreen content. Don't be lying on your taxes. Talk about FemHouse said the tax thing was, don't even try it. I've got sort of a question. It's maybe loosely related. How are you deciding your price points in these different offerings of yours?
I was really intentional at part of this, and part of that initial conversation that I had with RAC. The beauty of all of this is we get to let the marketplace decide the value, right? And that's the problem that we get with fixed proposition, like payments in the Spotifys of the world, et cetera. It's like someone wants to pay more, they have no opportunity to do so, right? So my first 3 drops, I set no reserve price. Right. I was just like, what is the value? What does the marketplace value this at? And I was lucky that people apparently valued it. Right. And so I think that price discovery is really important. And a lot of people will box themselves in by setting too high a price early on and not understanding the realistic position that they're starting in with however large or small their project currently is.
Thank you. Also from Ren, also as a woman who wants to get into the industry, in your own experience, what are some don'ts? How can you deal with a man manager? How can you tell he is genuinely interested in your work or something else? Do all managers approach the same way? How do you make a meeting professional?
Loaded question. I would say what I encourage people to do and what I did, even though it was very uncomfortable because I have spent a lot of time reframing how I interact with the world, because I, like most people, have been conditioned to just to exist in the world in certain ways that women are expected to exist in the world. I am extremely smart, I am extremely knowledgeable, and I am an extremely quick learner. So what I chose to do was learn as much as I possibly could. And when I went into situations, instead of posturing myself as I'm here to ask questions, I'm here, right, which I was there to ask questions and there to learn, but I always kind of led with, well, what's my value add, right? Okay, this is my value add. Hey, this is actually where I'm a really great resource to all of this. And then I have these questions and I'm really curious about this. And I think that framing of like, okay, well, this is how I position myself in the world, forces people to look at you differently. And I think that, again, as women, we're kind of like, we come from the bottom up a lot. in terms of like, okay, cool, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to be too dominant. I don't want to be too masculine. And we know that like the idea of femininity is like such a wide range of what that actually looks like in practice. So it's like, like I would just own, what are your skills? What are you really good at? And then follow it up with, and I'm here and I'm really curious. And then in terms of, working with men in the industry, some are brilliant and some are the worst. And as often as possible, I try to work with women because I find that they are more productive, more ambitious, more humble, and more practical and realistic. But at the end of the day, you have to go with your gut. And it kind of all comes back to trusting your instincts and owning your skills and owning like your own power.
Good answer. And Rin, I'll also say for Fem House's part, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation and sort of like start talking about NFT is because I'm seeing a lot of chatter online from women who want to enter the space, but it's so front facing, like broy and douchey, and it just automatically doesn't feel safe. And we wanted to do this today to create a safe space for people to learn and ask questions and not feel weird about it and not feel disempowered for being curious and all of the sort of other psychological shit that can happen when you're in a space that's not safe for you to learn. And it won't be the last time that we do this for that reason. Also from Ren, what would be the best way to promote an NFT in the music industry?
Limitless. I feel like this is like this question. Promoting an NFT is no different than promoting a song than it is promoting a book, right? It's like you're looking left and right and you're just like, who wants this? And how can I access them? How can I force someone from being, I don't know, a spectator, someone on the sidelines, to being an active participant? And I think that's really just about knowing your community and knowing your audience. And if you don't know who your audience is, look left and right at people who you consider your contemporaries and look at their audience and look at their trajectory and learn from that. And I think it's definitely not like, I can't give a single answer to it. But I would say it's just like, again, who are you serving?
Excellent. From an anonymous attendee, did you define what an NFT is? If not, could you break it down and define it? It's non-fungible. What's the T?
Token.
Token.
Non-fungible token. I mean, I guess in layman's how I would best describe it is it's a unique piece of code that exists on the blockchain, right? It's a unique piece of data, and I would call it a box. Anything can be an NFT. You can put anything in that box. It can be a song. Technically, it's contract, right? It can be a book. It can be a piece of art. So anything can be an NFT, and essentially, it's just, again, unique on the blockchain.
Thank you. Also from another, or maybe the same anonymous and attendee, I don't know. Are there concert spaces for indies in Web3 that can provide good experience? Is it decentralized, I think is what they're trying to say there?
No,
Are there more?
Decentraland.
Decentraland, excuse me. You see, I'm learning here with y'all. Are there more? Yes.
Decentraland is kind of, it's Sims-esque.
Okay.
Right. But interactive. There are more popping up. There's Decentraland, there's Sandbox, like Roblox, like all of these different like interactive web gaming systems. And there will be more. It just like, how big is the audience and how worthwhile it is? Like that's something that's TBD, but it's also not my area of focus. So I'm not the best because I'm going to be like, well, I don't think my fans want to hang out there. So perhaps I'm not going to exist there. But that being said, don't let my comment deter you from exploring if that's what you're interested in, if that makes sense.
Shit. Cool. This next one is from Alexia from Greece. Hey, really great Q&A session. I love all your modern ideas and it's inspiring how you're solving artist problems on your own. How do you feel about the sustainability of NFTs? Is the use of Ethereum, which is not that sustainable, concerning to you, as you could get, quote, canceled and dragged for this?
Damn.
I love a good
No.
canceling and drag, and I'm not gonna lie
A
to you.
cancel and drag on a
I
Saturday.
love a good cancel and drag.
Okay, no, but it is an important and extremely like nuanced question. I think climate change is an inherently wicked problem that I alone am not, I am not equipped to solve. I really believe that technological innovation is important, right? Both things exist. We live in a world where there are 5 truths that are equally as real at any given moment. I think for me, the fact that Ethereum is moving from proof of work to proof of stake, like there is a path towards being more sustainable. And I think that's extremely important. And I really do believe that blockchain technology in the long run is going to be able to replace a lot of these clunky systems that do wind up taking more energy. And I also do believe that like until we move away from fossil fuel use, that there's zero that can be done in general for what is the massive climate change problem. And then in terms of like translating, how do you have very highly nuanced and volatile conversations with large groups of people is a totally separate question.
The
And
answer,
for me,
I think, is not on Twitter.
not on Twitter. No, that's literally my fucking answer. Is like it is not on Twitter.
Not on Twitter, nobody's comment section, generally.
And but I do invite people to come have long form conversations with me about it on Discord. And for me, it's like when you have a long form and logical conversation with someone about like these very real issues, you really do come to like understanding of like, okay, well, this is my motivation, this is why I'm doing it, etc. And it's much again, it's less of an argument and more of a conversation. And that's how you avoid the cancel and drag.
Good shit. Always avoid the cancel and drag if you can. And if you can't, watch from the sidelines because that can be fun too.
It's dark.
Anonymous attendee asks, how did you choose to be an independent artist? Looking back on your career, do you think you should have signed with a label?
No, I would have gotten chewed up and spit out within a year, right? Because I was never going to dance on TikTok, really, is the shortest form answer. Like I wasn't built for that. And like, I just wasn't really willing to compromise. I've always been a bit weird. And I've always written stuff that's a bit left of center. And while it exists in the realm of pop, and while some of that music has resonated on a very wide scale, like I still consider myself a very niche artist. And I think what we've learned is like the massive system isn't built for like the niche and unique. And every once in a while, someone can thrive there. And you do see really brilliant artists succeed. So it's not necessarily a dig on the artists that do succeed in those systems. Those are just perfect storms.
Mm-hmm.
And I just from the beginning, I was just like, I'll bet on myself. And if it's my ship and it sinks, it's like my ship, you know?
At least it's yours. At least you're driving.
At least it's mine.
A reminder to the audience to drop questions in the Q&A box. If it's in the chat, I will not see it. And I'm going to be wrapping up on questions here as we're running out of time. This from Jessica Price. Have you dropped an NFT release with a sample and how does that work? That's a really good question, Jessica.
Okay, so I would say that sample-based music NFTs like at the moment are just kind of off the table unless there's a prior agreement with whoever that sample is by, right? And when we get into like NFTs and rights, it becomes very difficult, but a sample is a master-based, it's master-based, right? So essentially what I would say is, I think that NFTs are most akin to digital merchandise, right? It's not a sync, in my opinion, though all of this will get litigated. So my
Sure.
opinion, is only mine. But the idea of whoever owns the master recording is going to get the majority share, right? In terms of we've been viewing it as digital downloads, right? And it's just a very expensive digital download because it's important to compensate collaborators while also recognizing, the 100,000 hours I've put into the thing.
Sure.
And so sample-based music, and when you're getting into who owns what, becomes very complicated. And so I would just encourage you to like own 100% of the music and recording that you wind up putting up, mostly for your protection.
So Jessica had a follow-up question. Maybe you just answered it with that last statement. Does the rights holder need to break down the fractional percentage for publishing and writers' royalties?
You do. And I think, again, right now, this is all so early. So a lot of this is being, it like will be litigated, but I'm, lucky enough to have been on both sides of it at this point. I've been a part of someone else's NFT and gotten paid from it, and I've paid people from mine. And so I think that, the definition that we're utilizing is kind of coming to be what is accepted as the definition. And I would just have really honest and transparent conversations like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm breaking it down, participate or don't. Right. But I am being extremely conscious of now who I work with moving forward. Right. Because like, I just don't want to have complicated conversations with people who I can't sit with one-on-one and explain things to.
For sure. Can you give a quick overview of what the blockchain is?
I can. I mean, apparently, like basically, I'm going to give the most layman's terms, mostly because I'm just bad at defining things. I know what it is, but if you make me say it, I'm going to fuck it up. But it's a transparent digital ledger, right? So it's just a ledger of transactions. So every transaction is completely transparent. Every bit of Ethereum that I've received, you can go look at it if you can find it. Every bit that I've sent. And I think what this does, again, when we're talking about financial literacy and who's spending what and where is money coming and going from, I'm focusing on it in the music industry, but in general, it's a really powerful tool to demystify, the flow of finances.
Thank you. From Ren, thank you so much for answering my questions and for sharing. You said that the audience would not be interested in more digital concerts. What if it's some artist that has always been an avatar? For example, the band of the movie Turning Red. People got excited and already have attended a concert of this made up group. I'd like to keep my privacy and get into the industry as a cartoon who is a singer. Is that crazy, impossible, or a bad idea? I want to know both of your opinions. I think it's fucking cool. I love the idea of it. I think that, I've had the great pleasure over my career of working with artists, and I think that the coolest ones to me just take the fucking risk. And I think we're at a really specific and special flashpoint in history where you can truly try anything that you want, especially if it's digital with lower risk than at any point in history. So I say tits first.
Tits first. I love that. Yeah, I'm the same. And I think that when it comes to metaverse stuff, I'm like, it's just not my area of expertise. But I think that if that's something that interests you and you want to build it, there is not a better time to have an interest, have a desire, and like a creative itch, and just build it. Right? There are so many people. Someone just in the comments said fluff world, and it's just like, Fluff World is such a great example of just like, there are people building these digital worlds, and there are people who do want to inhabit them.
Good shit. Sarah Wimmer, what advice would you give artists that are just starting out as musicians and producers, both in regard to self-release and the general creative process?
Oh, wait, which question are you reading?
Sarah Wimmer's question.
Oh, I'm on the wrong question. I was like doing a deep dive into it.
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I'm reading it really quick. What advice would you give artists just starting out as musicians and producers? Man, I would say that the advice that I would give anyone is that if you're going to do this, you need to commit, and this is a full-time job, and like it's a commitment to chaos in a lot of ways. Ultimately, I still feel like it's the ultimate privilege to build a creative career and build something that is your own. And I would be relentless, right? And like, the only reason that I have a career today is because I have a lot of resilience, and I get kicked down all the fucking time, and I give myself a day or two, and then I get back up, and create a new plan and move forward. And so when I get asked questions like that, I don't like to go into like specifics, because the specifics of who everybody is and what they're trying to build is so nuanced. But I think that mentality of like, you just need the grit to sustain when the universe is against you, when everything is failing. And that is the only difference between people who succeed and people who fail.
I love that. I love that. Anonymous attendee says, thanks for doing this. I totally written off NFTs as a broy thing, like I mentioned. I really appreciate this conversation. Would you consider doing unique releases as NFTs and unlisted on streaming platforms? Would that give the release rights to the person who owns the NFT, or would you still get royalties? That's a really good question, anonymous attendee. Show yourself.
Show yourself. So one, when you sell an NFT, unless it's explicitly stated, there's no IP, royalties, anything attached to it. It is just the NFT, nothing more. So that's, I guess, the second half of the question. God, what was the first half of the question?
The first half of the question
Oh,
was,
it's dismissed.
would
I
you
see it.
consider doing unique releases
Ah.
as NFTs and unlisted on streaming platform?
Yeah, and I've done that. I worked with a platform called Async, where essentially I made 246 unique versions of the same song. And it was unlisted on platforms and it was unique for that platform. And so again, it's like what I did was essentially that platform didn't get this commercial push, right? Because most of my fans don't care about any of this. That being said, it's just expanded my idea of like the level of creativity and reach that I can have with songs, and not every song needs to have this wide reach. Maybe I can create for someone again. What if I wrote a song and only gave it to one person who invested in the creation of that song? Like, I think there's meaningful value propositions everywhere there. And so, yeah, definitely. Again, it's like with all of this, there are unlimited options. So it's like, if you have an idea, I would say you can do it.
Good shit. Anonymous attendee says, I am new to the industry and I simply want a second opinion. A composer friend of mine was composing for a short film. She asked me if I wanted to compose a short ending song and got the credit of being the additional composer. When I sent what I wrote to her, she then told me that she wrote something inspired by, based on what I wrote, probably because what I wrote was a bit heavy and dark. Anonymous attendee, you have my heart there. Even though I couldn't tell the similarities at all. Then she told me that the director couldn't give me the credit of the additional composer. Is this whole situation a common practice in the industry at all?
I have opinions on this. I mean, I'm a firm believer that inspiration isn't writing. And so if there are no melodic, rhythmic, structural, instrumental similarities, I would say that you didn't write it. If the vibe of something you did inspired a new composition, while it's a bummer that like that didn't translate, your work didn't translate, I wouldn't consider that writing, because I'm inspired by, so much music that then you can't necessarily tell the influence. I think it's weird that they said it inspired it. It just kind of creates a weird question mark for this anonymous attendee. But I think that so long as there's no actual interpolation of the idea, it's a bummer, but it's not necessarily wrong.
Got you. Another anonymous attendee. What do you foresee your next steps to be with respect to NFTs, releasing music, live shows, etc.?
Limitless plans. I think I'm really interested in doing more generative work, more interactive experiences with fans, with collectors. I'm creating black cards for fans and collectors. Some like my top collectors are going to receive a card that has an NFC chip in it that they can tap at my shows and get free merch. Again, bridging the digital and physical experiences. And so I'm really excited about stuff like that. I'm working on a third record, so I'm like shooting all the visuals and what does it mean to create art pieces that have a consideration towards being one of one digital art, etc. And I think what all of this has done is like freed me from the necessity to like create solely for the algorithm. It's like I can do whatever I want, and I have a bit more space to do so.
Rad. Final question from Aaliyah Gilbert here. Have you put a lot of energy into educating your own fans in crypto literacy? Do you feel that this is another role you have to have as an artist who is going into Web3? Or do you just say, this is what I'm doing, do your own research, but maybe in a nicer way?
This is a great final question. I have very strong opinion that it is not appropriate, nor is it the artist's job to educate fans on cryptocurrency. I can educate fans on a lot of things, but cryptocurrency is a volatile asset. There are inherent security risks that do exist. There are a lot of scams. Like it is not a friendly place for somebody to just jump in on a whim. And, you know, the idea that me as an artist would say, get some ETH and buy this, and then the value of ETH would plummet, which is a potential. I don't want that experience to be because I'm shilling something I'm trying to sell, etc. It's really important. I'm doing all of this, I'm sharing it, I'm marketing to people who are well versed, who exist in this world, who are confident in their skills, who know the security risks. And for my fans, if you want to get involved, you need to do that research on your own, come to it on your own, show up to the marketplace on your own, and get on a like a town hall with you and tell you not to buy it unless you're completely sure, right? Because I care about these people and I care about their well-being. And so more so than extracting as much money as I can from my fans who have given me so much, it's like I'm experimenting with value. I don't know if any of this shit is value, right? It's like, so at the end of the day, this is all this very fun cerebral game that we're playing here that I really do believe in, right? I'm not just sitting here, you know, fucking around, but I think that it's really important to let people come into the world in their own time. And again, certain ways have been successful. If Royal creates a custodial wallet for people and they have a fiat on-ramp, it's very easy to participate at a very, very, very low risk. So I did send my fans there because I really trusted their ecosystem. And I trust someone just getting a MetaMask, putting no money in it, and me airdropping them an NFT. So there are these little mechanisms that I do trust. But again, it's like we're people over money at the end of the day. Like we need to care for the people who care for us.
Final question is from me. You're sitting in front of your younger self. What do you say?
Man, don't take it all so seriously. Like I'm very lucky that I've worked as hard as I have and have built myself up to the point that I have, but I did not have fun along the way as much as I should have. And I think that I'm like 31 now, and I feel like I'm living my 20s and my 30s a little bit. I'm just like, now I'm gonna play with it all, and I'm gonna try and have as much fucking fun as I possibly can.
Well, FemHouse fam, you heard it here first. 30 is the new 20. Verite, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I appreciate
This is
you.
great. And I would love to connect in general because I love everything that you guys are doing at FemHouse.
Thank you so much. You're looking at the newest FemHouse educator, Verite. She's going to help us create an NFT educational ecosystem. You heard it here first.
I'm here.
Thank y'all for coming. This will be up on YouTube and everywhere. Verite, thank you so much for your time. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. It's lit. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.